हरिः ओम् नमः सर्वेभ्यः। अद्य कृदन्तप्रकरणस्य 80तमः पाठः। अस्मिन् वर्गे निष्ठाप्रत्ययोः प्रक्रियायाम् इडागमस्य निपातनं कुत्र कुत्र कृतम् अस्ति तेषां सूत्राणाम् अध्ययनं कुर्मः। प्रारम्भे वन्दनम्। येनाक्षरसमाम्नायम् अधिगम्य महेश्वरात् कृत्स्नं व्याकरणं प्रोक्तं तस्मै पाणिनये नमः। वाक्यकारं वररुचिं भाष्यकारं पतञ्जलिं पाणिनिं सूत्रकारं च प्रणतोऽस्मि मुनित्रयम्। मुनित्रयं नमस्कृत्य तदुक्ति परिभाव्य च वैयाकरणसिद्धान्तकौमुदीयं विरच्यते। निष्ठाप्रत्ययोः प्रक्रियायाः अध्ययनं प्रचलत् अस्ति। तत्र षष्ठः सोपानः इडागमः। तत्र इडागमस्य अध्ययनार्थम् अस्माभिः 6 वर्गाः कृताः। प्रथमः वर्गः तथा च द्वितीयः वर्गः नो चेत् गणः इति वक्तुं शक्यते। प्रथमः गणः तथा च द्वितीयः गणः इत्यत्र निष्ठाप्रत्ययोः इडागमः कथं भवति इत्यस्मिन् विषये सूत्राणि। तृतीयः गणः तथा च चतुर्थः गणः इत्यत्र निष्ठाप्रत्ययोः इडागमनिषेधः कथं भवति। तृतीये गणे साक्षात् इडागमनिषेधः कथं भवति। चतुर्थे गणे च यस्य विभाषा इति अप्रत्यक्षरूपेण इडागमस्य निषेधः कथं भवति इति ह्यस्तनवर्गे अस्माभिः दृष्टम्। अद्य अग्रे सरामः। पञ्चमः गणः 5th सेट् इडागमविशिष्टं निपातनम् एंड 6th सेट् इडागमविशिष्टं वैदिकनिपातनम्। There are some situations where you do not get an idagama and there is no reason to justify it. Just the final form has been given and we call it as a nipatana. These are the sutras that we are going to study in this class at the beginning. Before that, there is some clarification or some additional discussion that I want to do on one sutram that we discussed yesterday. So in the yesterday's class, when we were talking about nishtha pratyayo sakshat idagama nishedha set number 3, there were a few sutras that we discussed, and one of the involved sutras, complicated sutras that I discussed was ghushihi avishabdane. If you remember, we also had a look at a dhatu patha. We saw that there are two dhatus. There is a ghushihi avishabdane, which is in the bhwadi gana, and there is a ghushihi vishabdane, which is in the churadi gana. And then there was some discussion that we carried out. We said that the Churadigana version can also come in a different meaning, which is same as the version of the Bhadigana. So Ghushihi Vishabdane iti Churadiganastha dhatuhu anyeshu api artheshu ityukte Ghushi Avishabdane ityasmin arthe api bhavati. And then Kashikakara says that both of these dhatus are to be included in all these cases and so on. So there was one small note that I did not explain yesterday. One small note that I incorrectly explained yesterday, both things. So I wanted to incorrectly in the sense just slip of tongue, but I wanted to set the record straight. So the discussion that I did yesterday that Ghusha dhatu Churadigane api asti tatra Ghusha Vishabdane iti artha asti. So it's the same slide. This is the yesterday's presentation, the same slide. I'm just putting it on the screen. So I mentioned yesterday in the yesterday's class that this particular dhatu Ghushir Vishabdane iti Churadiganasya dhatuho asti asya dhatoho avishabdane asmin arthe api prayogaha bhavati. So in yesterday's class I mentioned this bhashyakarasya matena. So if you remember, I was saying bhashyakarasya matena asya dhatoho avishabdane asmin arthe api prayogaha bhavati. So that was actually a typing error. I did not realize it at that time. I should have said kashikakarasya matena, not bhashyakarasya matena. So Kashikakara actually says, and we have actually seen the commentary of Kashika. So Ghushi ashabdarthe iti bhadishu, that was the next slide of yesterday's class, and Ghushi vishabdane iti churadishu dvayoho api atra samanyena grahanam. So that tayoho samanyena grahanam basically indicates that both the dhatus are to be included in this sutram. Now, if the Churadigana dhatu is only vishabdane, how can we include it in avishabdane? So the answer is dhatuna manike arthaha santi aneka arthaha dhatavaha. So we also add another meaning on the top of Ghushihi Vishabdane, which is Ghushihi Avishabdane, and then include this particular dhatu, the 10th Gana dhatu, in that sutram. So all that discussion that I mentioned, I tagged it under the name of Bhashyakara says this, Bhashyakara says this, twice or thrice I mentioned Bhashyakara says this. To be very clear, this was Kashikakara's opinion. The reason why I am explaining this explicitly over here is because Bhashyakara has a completely different take on this sutram, which I did not explain yesterday, which I want to spend some time on right now. So understand that Ghushihi Avishabdane iti sutram. Let's go slowly. Ghushihi Avishabdane iti sutram. अस्मिन् सूत्रे केवलं भ्वादिगणस्य धातोः एव ग्रहणं भवति इति प्रारम्भिकः निष्कर्षः, because that is the only dhatu in the Bhwadigana. Avishabdane is in the Bhwadigana. We can actually go to the dhatu patha and Ghusha GHUSH. So here the first and the second one, Ghushir Avishabdane, that's the Bhwadigana, and Ghushir Vishabdane, that is the Churadigana. So what Kashika says, whatever I explained yesterday under the name of Bhasha, that's actually what Kashika says. Let me first clarify that Bhasha interestingly comes to the same conclusion. So the conclusion of that whole exercise was that the nich pratyaya is optional for this Ghusha dhatu. So that conclusion is also certified by the Bhashya, but the methodology is different. The methodology taken by Kashika is slightly different. The one that is taken by Bhashya is slightly different. What we discussed yesterday was Kashika's methodology. Let's quickly revise that methodology so that the context is set right, and then we will go to what the Bhashya says. So what was Kashika saying is that this particular sutram is applicable, yesterday's presentation, this particular sutram is applicable for 10th gana dhatu in the sense of avishabdani, but for the 10th gana dhatu, whether the idagama comes or whether the idagama does not come, the forms are same, and therefore the fact that this particular dhatu is, this particular sutram is applicable for 10th gana dhatu also means that the form must differ, and the only way that the forms should differ is by dropping the niche. So that was all that we discussed yesterday. चुरादिगणस्य धातूनां विषये सामान्य रूपेण इडागमः क्रियते चेदपि तदेव रूपम्, इडागमः न क्रियते चेदपि तदेव रूपम्. So there was no reason to bring in the 10th gana dhatu in picture at all, but he brought in the 10th gana dhatu in the picture, and the reason for that is because the forms differ, and the only way the forms will differ is by dropping nich. So that was a jnapaka that चुरादिगणस्य घुषधातोः विषये णिच् प्रत्ययः विकल्पेन भवति. So all this we discussed yesterday, everything still holds, nothing of it is incorrect, just we need to understand that it is Kashika's opinion. Bhashya's opinion is slightly different, and it is surprisingly very easy to understand. There are no complications at all in the Bhashya. Bhashya's opinion is extremely simple to understand as compared to all this roundabout circus done by Kashika. Bhashya eventually comes to the same conclusion. This is the beauty. Bhashya eventually comes to the same conclusion that the Ghusha dhatu will get an optional niche. He gives a very simple method or very simple logic to arrive at. So let's talk about that particular aspect, what Bhashya says, and then we will move on to today's discussion. So the question that Bhashya puts forth in the beginning, which is also given in the Kashika, or which is also the origin of argument given in Kashika, the question is this: there is a sutram Ghushihi Avishabdane. अस्मिन् सूत्रे अविशब्दने इति किमर्थम् उच्यते? केवलं घुषि इत्येव वदामः इति तत्र आक्षेपः. केवलं घुषिः विदाउट अविशब्दने इति उच्यते चेत् कः दोषः इति प्रश्नः. Now obviously we know the answer to this question. The answer is that then it will cause a conflict, whether it's a 10th gana dhatu, whether it's a first gana dhatu. So what is the answer? If you just say ghusha, then चुरादिगणस्य घुष विशब्दने धातोः विषये अपि अस्य सूत्रस्य प्रसक्तिः स्यात्. There are two dhatus, घुष अविशब्दने and घुष विशब्दने. Vishabdane is in 10th gana. We would like to block it, and that's why avishabdane has been inserted in this sutra. This is the first level of argument. Now it is at this point in time Kashika and Bhashya differ. Kashika says that we actually want the sutra to be applicable for Ghusha Vishabdane also. So then Kashika says, Atra Avishabdane iti uktam asti, parantu tathapi ayam dhatuhu idam sutram Ghusha Vishabdane ityasya krute api prayujyate. And then the further argument of Kashika that therefore the 10th gana dhatu will have multiple meanings, and the other meaning is what we will consider, and so on, is purely written over here. Let me just quickly go through it. This is the Kashika's argument which was discussed yesterday. So चुरादिगणस्य घुषविशब्दने इति धातोः अपि अस्मिन् सूत्रे धातूनाम् अनेकार्थत्वात् ग्रहणम् इष्यते. अयं चौरादिकः धातुः अविशब्दने अस्मिन् अर्थे प्रयुज्यते चेत् इडागम निषेधः by this सूत्रम विशब्दने अस्मिन् अर्थे तु इडागमः भवति because the sutra itself says अविशब्दने. परंतु चुरादिगणस्य सेट् धातूनां विषये इडागम सहितम् इडागम रहितं रूपं समानमेव भवति because when you have a nich and a it, the nich will go away by nisthayam seti, whereas when you don't have a nich, when you don't have an it and you only have a nich, the nich remains. So in presence of it, nich will anyway go away. Nich is again e only, it is also again e only. When two e's are in front, the first e will go away, so eventually only one e remains, and that's the reason why both the forms are same. So what he says is churadiganasya set dhatunam vishay idagama sahitam idagama rahitam rupam samanameva, and therefore there was no need to talk about avishabdane in this sutram. Whether the sutra gets extended to 10th gana or whether doesn't get extended to 10th gana doesn't really matter. So asmin sutre avishabdane iti nirdesha vyarthaha ayam vyarthaha nirdeshah jnapayati तत्र रूप भेदः भवेत्. अतः चुरादिगणस्य घुष धातोः णिच् प्रत्यय विकल्पेन भवति, णिच् प्रत्ययं विना घोषति इति विशब्दने अस्मिन् अर्थे दशमगणस्य रूपमपि साधुरूपम् एव. So all this I have discussed yesterday. If there is still confusion on this point, please listen to the yesterday's class. Again, the discussion that I have done today to understand it. Now coming to the Bhashya argument, which is surprisingly beautiful and very simple. Bhashya starts again with this question. Ghushir avishabdane asmin sutre avishabdane iti kimartham is the question. And the answer that we are giving is that churadiganasya ghusha vishabdane dhatoho vishaye asya sutrasya prasakti na bhavet. Bhashya says, hold on for a minute. Ghusha vishabdane from the churadigana can never get a nishtha pratyaya. Understand this carefully. What does Bhashya say? Bhashya says that Ghusha vishabdane of churadigana can never get a nishtha pratyaya. So there is no confusion of having a nishtha for bhwadigana versus having a nishtha for churadigana. The churadiganasya Ghusha vishabdane dhatoho nishtha pratyaha naiva bhavati. Now, how that is even logical? That is logical because for the churadigana, the only pratyaya that is allowed is the swarthika nicha pratyaya. When you add a swarthika nicha pratyaya on ghusha, a new atideshika dhatu gets formed, and it is that atideshika dhatu that will get all other pratyas, tak, tavatu, tuhun, tavyat, tavyat, lyap, tva, whatever pratyas you want to add. Those pratyas are to be added on a different dhatu which is generated by applying the nich on the original dhatu. Original dhatu cannot get any of these pratyas. This is the crux of the argument of Bhashya. Understand this. Not just Ghusha Vishabdane, but any dhatu of Churadigana first must get a nich pratyaya. And what happens when it gets a nich pratyaya? A new dhatu is created. Sanabhyanta dhatavaha ityanena tatra atideshika dhatuhu siddhyati, and the atideshika dhatu is the one that will get all the ktak, tavatu and so on. Therefore, there is no confusion on which is the ghusha dhatu that gets that gets nishtha. When we say ghushir avishabdane ityatra ghusha iti prathama ganasya dhatuhu uda dashama ganasya dhatuhu iti tatra samshayaha naiva bhavitum arhati. किमर्थम नैव भवितुम अर्हति? दशमगणस्य धातुः तत्र निष्ठा प्रत्ययं नैव स्वीकरोति, तत्र सः णिच् प्रत्ययं स्वीकरोति, तदनन्तरं भिन्नः धातुः सिद्ध्यति, सः भिन्नः धातुः क्त प्रत्ययं स्वीकरोति. And therefore what Bhashyakara is saying, without going in the meanings of the dhatus, so Bhashyakara does not talk about 10th gana dhatu having two different meanings, and also that's very confusing argument from Kashika. Bhashyakara does not say that. The only thing Bhashyakara puts forth is that the word avishabdane is useless in this sutram. Why is the word avishabdane useless? Because it is not serving any purpose. If you are saying that the purpose of Ghushihi avishabdane is to distinguish it from the Ghushir vishabdane, then you are wrong. There is no need to distinguish Ghushir avishabdane from Ghushir vishabdane, because Ghushir vishabdane cannot get a nishtha pratyaya. It must get a nich pratyaya, and the new dhatu that is generated will get a nishtha pratyaya. And as you can see, there are no other Ghusha dhatus. So understand this carefully. If the competition was between Gana 1 versus Gana 5, or say Gana 1 versus Gana 7, then it was okay to add that additional meaning, because all dhatus from Gana 1 to Gana 9 can get a nishtha pratyaya directly. But when it comes to Gana 10, we have to add a nich pratyaya, a new dhatu is created, and that dhatu will get a nishtha pratyaya. Therefore, conflict between first and 10th Gana, or second and 10th Gana, third and 10th Gana cannot arise, and therefore, केवलम अत्र घुषिः इति उच्यते चेदपि वरम तथापि पाणिनि महर्षि अत्र अविशब्दने इति वदति. So if avishabdane was useless, why does Panini add it? Panini adds avishabdane over there because Panini wants to say that churadi ganasya ghusha dhatu can also get the nishtha pratyaya directly. When the churadi ganasya ghusha dhatu can get the nishtha pratyaya directly, only then a conflict arises. That a bhwadi ganasya ghusha dhatu can also get a nishtha pratyaya directly. Churadi ganasya ghusha dhatu can also get a nishtha pratyaya directly. They have a different meanings. Only one of them I want to have the idagam nishedha. So let me add a meaning called avishabdane in the sutra. That is how the meaning now becomes sarthaka. If the churadigana dhatu is forced to get a nicha, avishabdane iti shabdaha tatra vyarthaha bhavati, ataha vyartham san ayam shabdaha kim jnapayati, churadiganasya ghusha vishabdane dhatuhu nich pratyayam vina api sakshat nishtha pratyayam svikartum shaknoti. In other words, nishtha pratyaya is, in other words, nich pratyaya is optional. So it can get a nich pratyaya and can get a nishtha on the top of it, or it can directly get a nishtha, and that directly getting in the nishtha is what is being indicated by Ghushi Ravi Shabdane. Therefore, churadiganasya Ghusha Vishabdane dhatoho nishtha pratyah naiva bhavati, tasmat dhatoho nich pratyam krutva ghoshi iti bhinnaha atideshika dhatu siddhyati, tasmat nich pratyah bhavati. Tasmat, not nich, tasmat nishtha pratyah bhavati. So tasmat dhatu nich pratyam krutva ghoshiti bhinna atideshaka dhatu siddhyati, tasmat nishtha pratyah bhavati. अतः अस्मिन् सूत्रे अविशब्दने इति ग्रहणं व्यर्थं, केवलं घुषि इति उच्यते चेदपि चौरादिकस्य ग्रहणं न भवति इति आशयः. So this व्यर्थ एतद् व्यर्थग्रहणं ज्ञापयति यत् चुरादिगणस्य घुषधातोः विषये अपि कुत्रचित् णिच् प्रत्ययं विना रूपं भवितुम् अर्हति. अतएव संशय निवारणार्थम् अविशब्दने इति शब्दः पाणिनि महर्षिणा अस्मिन् सूत्रे स्थापितः अस्ति. अनेन प्रकारेण चुरादिगणस्य घुषधातोः णिच् प्रत्ययः विकल्प्यते. So conclusion is same. Both Kashika and Bhashya eventually certify that the niche is optional. There is a slightly different route taken in Kashika. There is a slightly different, easier or more beautiful route taken in Bhashya. So I just want to open up the Bhashya. It's like 2 lines of Bhashya argument. I can actually read it in front of you and maybe it's understandable. Look at this. Ghushi, last line. Ghushihi avishabdane kimartham avishabdane iti uchyate. So why do you want to tag that particular sutram by avishabdane? Na vishabdane churadi nicha bhavitavyam. So vishabdane, which is in the churadi gana, will anyway get a nicha. There is no question of adding the nishtha directly on the dhatu, it will get a nicha. So evam tati siddhe sati yad ayam avishabdana. Siddhe sati means without avishabdana also the meaning was clear, but still the word avishabdana has been added in the sutram. Siddhe sati yad avishabdanam ityah tadnyapayati acharyah, or acharyo, which is Vartikakara and Panini Maharshi both. Tadnyapayati acharyo, no, the acharyo, acharyah iti bhavet, jnapayati acharyah. Vishabdane ghushehe vibhasha nich bhavati iti. So basically, eventually in one line he concludes that the nich pratyaya should be optional for the ghusha dhatu of 10th gana, and therefore the prayoga is from Mahabhashyam, as I mentioned yesterday. Mahi palavacha shrutva jughushu pushpamanavaha eshaha prayogaha upavannaha bhavati. 1 line, 2 line Bhashya is there. Now it should be extremely simple to understand. There is one question that I can take it. The question is that in Churadigana all dhatus are anekaj dhatus. That is correct. So in Churadigana all dhatus, because they get a nich, eventually end up in becoming anekaj dhatus, and therefore they anyway get an it on the, so the nishtha pratyay will anyway get an it, or any it yogya pratyay will anyway get an it on the top of it. The discussion over here was that the gusha dhatu needs to get the nishtha pratyay directly without the interference of an it. Only then the avishabdane meaning would make sense in that original sutram, is what the missing piece of puzzle that I missed or I forgot to explain yesterday. Actually, there was no slide yesterday, so I did not explain it yesterday. That's what I wanted to clarify today. Agre gacchamaha. So that eventually completes the idagama nishedha part 1 and part 2. That's basically set 3 and set 4. The next one now is basically set 5. Let's take a quick look at set 5. Idagama vishishtam nipatanam. So what is happening in idagama vishishtam nipatanam? We are going to see sutras, and through these sutras we are going to get ready-made words. What is speciality of these ready-made words? The idagama or the lack of idagama, either of them will be directly given to you. You don't have to worry about the sutram. So there is a set dhatu and idagama is expected, but out of the blue idagama doesn't happen. The form is ready-made given to you. Similarly, on the opposite side, there is a dhatu for which the nishtha pratyas are not expected to get an idagama, but out of blue the idagama happens. The nipatanam is ready-made given to you. You don't have to worry about it. Not just the idagama vishishta nipatanam, some other nipatanas also happen in that prakriya. Like idagama nipatanam will always be there because this particular sutra is in the idagama section. But some other nipatanas like transformation of some other letters, transformation of pratyas, some additional nipatanas will also be there. That's all that we have to discuss. Very little prakriya. We will go over this. At least the sutras of set 5 I want to go properly. Sutras of set number 6, idagama vishishtam vaidika nipatanam, specifically used only in the Vedas. Is just, I just have one slide. In 1 minute I'll run through it without more details, and then we will wrap up today's class. So that's the plan for today. Prarabhamahe. So the next, this is the link to the sheet. As I mentioned yesterday, I have modified the sheet to have all the 10 steps. This is the sheet that, please refer to this, and this is the sheet that we will continue using for the remaining part of the nishtha prakriya discussion. So nishtha idagama vishtam nisthanta nipatanam. The first sutra in that list over here, this whatever orange saffron color, the first sutra in that list is 7 to 18. Shubdha swanta dvanta lagna mlishta viridha phanta badhani mantha manas tamas sakta vispashta swaranayasa nayasa brusheshu. Simple sutram. There is nothing over here. There are two words. The first word gives the ready-made list of ta pratyanta forms. The second word gives the meanings. So in the yatha sankham tatra yojanam karaniyam, in these meanings, eteshu sarveshu artheshu atra nirdishtaha ta pratyanta shabdaha yatha sankham nipatyante. So Kshubdha swanta, look at this. Kshubdha swanta dvanta lagna mlishta viribdha phanta badha. 8 of them are there. Kshubdha swanta dvanta lagna mlishta viribdha phanta badha. Ityete nipatyante. Some words are extremely familiar for us. Badham, we all know this. Lagnam, probably mlishtam, kshubdham. These are very well known words. Some of them probably are not that known. Swantam, Phantam, Viribdham, slightly new. So ityete sarve nipapyante yatha sankham mantha manas tamas sakta avispashta swara anayasa brusha ityeteshu artheshu. Let's actually go over that particular list of arthas one by one, and then I'll go back to the commentary and I'll read the commentary in a single flow. So here are those 8 different verbs and the corresponding forms that they generate. The first, let's start with the kshubdha. Kshubha sanchalane, to move, to shake, to agitate. Iti dhatuhu. Kshubha sanchalane iti dhatuhu asti. Tatra kta iti pratyayah kriyate chet सामान्य रूपेण तत्र इडागमः भवितुम् अर्हति. अतः क्षुभित नो चेत् क्षोभित इति रूपद्वयं सिद्ध्यति. So you can have kshubhita, you can also have the idagama by, you can also have the guna over here, upadha guna by puganta laghupadasya, because the kit, the nishtha pratyaya becomes akit pratyaya. We'll talk about that in upcoming classes. But samanya rupena, the normal prayogas are kshubhita and kshobhita, but in a particular meaning of mantha, the idagama does not come up, and therefore you get kshubha plus kta, shubdha. What is mantha? There are two meanings given for this word. Dravya, this is a typing mistake. Drava dravya mishrita saktuhu. Saktuhu is barley or grains or whatever. A paste is made by adding those semi-solid items into a liquid solution. So basically a mixture of a liquid and non-liquid. So drava, dravya, mishrita. Drava is liquid, dravya is an object. The object of those grains or whatever, they have been mixed with the water. A paste has been made. That particular paste of grains is called mantha. It is also being referred as the word kshubdha. How is this related to the meaning sanchalane? Probably not much related, but we are somehow justifying some existing words. Or you can somehow stretch the meaning of sanchalane and impose it, like you have to do some kind of steering, some kind of agitation, some kind of forceful movement, and then that particular paste is formed. So whichever way you want, you need to justify it somehow yena kena prakarena and say that kshubdha word is generated in the meaning of mantha. What is mantha? Drava dravya mishrita saktuhu. Saktuhu is some specific type of grains. Those particular grains, when mixed with water or some liquid, not necessarily water, some liquid, and a paste is done, that's called mantha. That is one meaning. The second meaning is the rod used for agitation. So for example, many times you use a rod for extracting navanitam out of, say, buttermilk, or some rod is used for steering, churning. So that danda, that rod, can also be called as mantha. So a mixture of those grains and a rod used for stirring, two different meanings. Both of them we refer them to the word kshub, by the word kshubdha. The meaning of them is mantha. Amarakosha says manthano manthadandake. So he's explaining kshubdha. So kshubdha manthano manthadandake. So Amarakosha says that the meaning of the word kshubdha is manthana and manthadandake. Manthadanda, the rod, is also referred as kshubdha. This Amarakosha thing reminds me, I wanted to quickly mention something about it. So a lot of new words that we learn have corresponding representations in Amarakosha. Like any new word that you learn in our course, you can most often pick up a line from Amarakosha and say dash 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 iti amaraha. So Amarakosha says this. As a sample on this slide, I have shown it for almost everything. Look at this. On the next line, we are going to derive the word swanta. I have given a line from the Amarakosha. On the next line, we are going to derive the word dvanta. I have given a line from the Amarakosha. Somewhere over here, we are going to derive the word mlishta. I'm going giving a line from Amarakosha, and so on. However, in general, I really don't encourage or favor this kind of exercise. If you would have noticed, I have not really quoted Amarakosha any time throughout our course explicitly for justifying the prayogas. And the fundamental reason for that is that the reason why these lines exist in Amarakosha is because Panini gives those words. So Panini first gives those words in Ashtadhyayi, and then centuries later Amarasingha comes and then he uses these words in Amarakosha to justify or to certify or to popularize their meaning. So again, referring back to Amarakosha in the reverse direction and saying that Amarakosha says this and therefore this derivation is acceptable is a reverse flow which is not acceptable. It was first Panini who wrote Ashtadhyayi, who formalized these words in the language, and Amarasingha only picked them up and put them in Amarakosha. So saying that kshubdha is in the sense of mantha because Amarakosha says so is a reverse argument. It should not be done. We should say exactly in the reverse argument or reverse way, that the word kshubdha was used in the language in the meaning of mantha as certified by Vartikakara or Bhashyakara, and therefore Amarasingha put it in Amarakosha. So taking fragments from Amara Kosha and justifying derivations of Ashtadhyayi is a reverse argument, and it should not be done. Ashtadhyayi came first, Amara Kosha came much later. So this is one point that I mean, there is nothing wrong, but I'm specifically while studying Ashtadhyayi, we should avoid this, is what I was pointing it out. Anyway, so let's go. But still, on this particular slide, I have written, because all these, I think, derivations come in one of the commentaries that I referred. They actually give all these references to Amara Kosha. So I said this is a good point for me to talk about these things. Let me add them on this slide. So doesn't harm, but understand that particular asterisk or conditions apply that particular point. So Kshubdha Mantha. Now there is some question that has come up over here. What about the word Kshubdha, which is typically used to indicate disturbed? So you have to like somehow say disturbed is kind of similar to agitated. I'm going to come to that particular question on how can Shubdha be justified in terms of disturbed a little bit later, say 10 or 15 minutes later. But for now, you can say that somehow yena kena prakarena tatra justification karaniyam. So maybe you can use Shubdha as say agitated like dravya mishritaha saktuhu. And in that sense, you can use it. That is one possible argument. There is a better argument that I'll come to it a little bit later on. Okay. Anyway, let's go to the next one. The next verb is swana avatansane, to avatansana, and shabde, to decorate. So avatansane ityukte to beautify, to decorate. Shabde, to speak iti api arthah. तत्र स्वन धातुः अस्ति, सामान्य रूपेण तत्र इडागमः भवति, अतः स्वनित इति तत्र रूपं सिद्ध्यति, परन्तु वस्तुतः अत्र अस्मिन् सन्दर्भे इडागमस्य निषेधः निपात्यते. So we have swantam. So swana plus ta, we get swantam. Rest all prakriya happens by the normal course. It is only the idagama that is being blocked. Rest all prakriya by the nipatana. Rest all prakriya is usual. So swantam iti shabdah asti manaha, mind. The mind is beautified, or mind is decorated, or mind is speaking something. Any meaning you can add it. Even if you don't associate meaning, that's okay. The word has to be somehow derived. So swantam iti shabdah manas manaha ityasmin arthe prayujyate. Again, there is a reference from Amara Kosha, swantam brunmanasam manaha. So somebody is asking, is it called, should we say codified by Amara Kosha, or should we say accepted by Amara Kosha? Then accepted by Amara Kosha is probably the right phrase. So the words are actually popularized by Amara Kosha. For example, because people memorizing Amara Kosha is probably large number of people memorize Amara Kosha as compared to probably Ashtadhyayi. Or even if you memorize Ashtadhyayi, remembering Shuddha is related to Mantha. Even though given in the Sutra of Ashtadhyayi, it's hard to recollect at a random point in time. So for understanding the meanings of the words, Amara Kosha is the best tool, not Ashtadhyayi. But we understand that it was given in Ashtadhyayi first, and then it was accepted, carried forward, popularized, encoded again in Amara Kosha. So anyway, so swana swantam iti manaha ityasmin arthe atra prayogah bhavati. So swanta sukhaya manasah sukhaya, swantasya sukhaya manasah sukhaya iti atra arthah. We have seen that prayoga various places. Second, the third dhatu is dhwana, to make a sound, obviously. Dhwana plus kta, dhvanita, actually very well known word. Dhvanita, bhashye dhvanitam, vyakhyane dhvanitam. We all say these kind of statements. So dhvanita is the normal usage, but in a very specific sense of andhakara, darkness, we get the idagam nishedha, dhvanta iti rupam bhavati. Now what does andhakara have to do with the sound? Maybe lack of sound, or maybe sound of darkness, some poetic imagination. It all depends on you. Eventually it is a nipatana. A word has been justified by some or other way in the given meaning. We have to use it. So dhvana shabde ityasmat, or maybe you can also say this is actually a better argument. Dhatunam aneke arthaha santi, aneka arthaha dhatavaha. Yesterday's class also we saw Ghushiravi shabdane aneka arthaha dhatavaha santi. So here also we can say dhvana might have multiple different meanings. Not all of them are written over here. Maybe one of them is related to tama. So dhvantam ityukte tamaha andhakaraha andhakaro striyam dhvantam tamisram timiram tamaha iti amarikoshe uchyate. So dhvant iti tamaha asmin arthe atra bhavati. So there's a question over here. Why is there an upadha dirgha? So swana becomes a swanta, dhvana becomes dhvanta. We will angakaryas, we will see it in the step of angakarya is in the angakarya. But I think you must be aware of this anudattopadesha vanati tanotyadinam anunasika. No, not that. There is another sutram. Sorry, there's the one that gives a dirghadesha. You can actually quickly look at it. It's not coming on. So the question was, why is there a dirghadesha over here? Anunasikasya kvijhalo kingiti, I think 6:4:15. That's the reason it gives a dirghadesha. Anunasikasya kvijhalo kingiti. Look at this. Anunastikantasya angasya upadhavarnasya jhaladikit pratyay pare dirghadeshaha bhavati. Just like the way shama becomes shama and so on. So if it is an anunasikanta anga like swana, there is a jhaladikit pratyay kta over here. So anunasikasya kvijhalokingiti will give an upadha dirgha swanta. Similarly over here, dhvana will become dhvanta. I have taught this sutra earlier, but we will study it again in the next week when we start with angakarya. The point to note over here is upadha dirgha is not by nipatana. Upadha dirgha will be by the proper sutra, proper mechanism. Even over here, shubha becoming shubdha. So bha becoming ba or ta becoming dha. It's not by nipatana. We have proper sutras in Tripadi that we will do it. Go back, refer to class number 25, I think, Tripadi Karyas, or 23, whatever. And all these Karyas have already been taught over there. We will revise them again when we go to the Tripadi in the Nishtha Prakaranam. So dhvana becomes dhvanta, laga becomes lagna. So laga sange, to adhere, to join. So laga sange ityukte lagnam, sambandham, to get associated with. Iti arthaha, sambandham. Here, so a normal rupa would be lagitam. Again, idagama is coming over there. Lagitam. That's idagama is being blocked. You say laga plus lagnam. Idagamasya abhavah nipatyate, and here natva also nipatyate. So there is no sutra to magically convert ta to na. It would have been lakta, but it is lagna. So na is also coming up as a nipatana over there. So lagnam ityatra, two things. Id pratyasya abhavah, id agamasya abhavah, tatha cha natvam. Ubhayoho atra nipatanam bhavati. So understand this. Idagamasya abhavaha is common across all these. In addition, there could be some additional nipatanas like over here, which is the natvam, which is nipatyate. Agrimam asti mlecha aspashta, speech, avyakte shabde, to speak indistinctly. Kta, mlecha plus kta, mlishta. Idagamasya abhavaha, and this a is magically becoming e. There are no sutras in the Nishtha Prakriya where a Raswadesha happens on A giving an E. So, mlecha plus the mlishta, aspashta, as I mentioned, the meaning is actually a well-known word. Mlishta, aspashta, iti arthaha, it agamasya abhavaha, tatha cha itvam, A is becoming E. Mlishta, iti nipatyate, specifically in the sense of aspashta. In all other cases, in the sense the normal kartari, karmani, adhikarani, whatever forms you want to take, in these cases, mlechita is the normal form that will come up. Virebha iti agrimaha dhatuhu. Rebha shabde, some places rambha or rabha shabde iti api bhavati. Tatra virebha plus kta viribdha iti shabdaha siddhyati. So rebha plus kta should become rebhita. That's the normal, or virebhita with the v upasarga. Virebhita, that's the normal solution or the normal answer. However, here the idagama is blocked. We get viribdha. Dhvani visheshaha, a certain type of swara, a certain type of dhvani, it's called viribdha. Again, idagamasya abhavaha, tatha ikaradesha, re becoming re. So viribdha idaagamasya abhavah ikaradeshah itvam cha nipatyate. The second last dhatu is phana gatau plus kta. Normal form will be phanita. What we get is a phanta. Again, phana plus kta. The same sutra anunasika with jhaloking iti will give an upadha dirgha. Phana plus ta. Normal shrutva will happen phanta. So phanta iti rupam siddhyati. Sarala rupena siddham kashayam. A medicine that can be extracted from the plant or raw ingredients without much processing. So typically creation of medicines is an extremely complex process. I mean, even in the corona days, we are seeing it needs so many months to create a vaccine. But even in those days when the medicines were restricted to plants or animals as the original product, there the process was not that simple. Maybe you have to extract the leaves, sometimes you have to dry this, sometimes you have to soak them, sometimes you have to grind them, and then multiple steps, distill them and then mix them with a solution, whatever, multiple different steps were possible. Therefore preparing a medicine was not very simple, but there were some medicines which were easily preparable. So not much processing was required. Maybe one simple mixing with water, little heating, and it's done. So simple process of making those medicines. So sarala rupena siddham kashayam anayasa kritam. Sarala rupena, without any effort or without much effort, the medicine is being prepared. That was referred, or that is referred as phanta. So phana gatau. What does gatau have to do with the medicine? Nothing. You have to somehow stretch and add the meaning there. Ante bah prayatne iti dhatuh. Bahita iti samanya rupena rupam bhavati. Tatra bah plus kta badham iti rupam siddhyati. So hakarasya dhakaradesha bhavati hodhaha. तकारस्य अपि ढकार, the first तकारस्य धकारादेशः भवति झषस्ततोर्धोधः, धकारस्य ढकारादेशः भवति ष्टुनाष्टुः, and the first ढकार goes away by ढ्रलोपे पूर्वस्य दीर्घोणः. If what I talked is not clear, later on listen to this part and write down that particular prakriya. Step number 1, h becomes dh by hodhaha. Step number 2, ta becomes dh by झषस्ततोर्धोधः. Step number 3, dha becomes dh by shtunashtuhu. So you have a dh and a dh sitting next to it. Dhodhe lopaha. The last step is dhodhe lopaha. Dh will go away. The fifth step is dhralope purvasa dirghona, but that's no operation because there is already a dirgha present over there. So these steps will give a final form as badha, punah punam, bhrusavaram, often, frequent iti artha. Bhusha pratidnyor badham pragadham bhrushapruchhayoh amarakoshasya atra panktihi asti. So all these words in these specified meanings are thus derived. Let's take a look at the commentaries. At the end of the commentaries, I want to come back to that kshuddha means disturb, that particular question somebody asked. There is a beautiful explanation in commentary at that particular point for that particular question. I'll come to that towards the end. But let's read Kashika first. Kshuddha swant dhvant lagna mlishta viribdha phant badha ityete nipatyante yatha sankhyam mantha, the danda for agitation or the paste, manas tamas sakta adhered, avispashta swara anayasa, that's for that medicine, and bhrusha ityeteshu artheshu. And then he goes over the entire list one by one. Kshuddha iti bhavati manthabhidanam chet kshuddhaha manthaha kshubhitam anyat. Kshubhitam is different. Kshubhitam manthena. So he uses that anyat word in the sentence. Kshubhitam manthena. The mantha, which is itself called as kshuddha, is used to agitate something which is called kshubhita. So you can also say kshubhitam kshubdhena, where kshubdhena means manthena and kshubhitam means the entity that's being mixed up. Kshubdha girihi kshubdha nadi ityevam adi upamanat bhavishyati. So coming to the question that somebody asks, kshubdha as an adjective, we see it in the language in the sense of being disturbed or being moved or being shaken, being agitated. It has nothing to do with the paste of that barley or wheat. It has nothing to do with the danda of shaking, but it's still used in that particular sense. So the Kashika, so this doubt is perfectly correct because you do see these prayogas in the language. Now the way Kashika explains it, it says, if you see prayogas like Shubdhaha Girihi, typing mistake, Shubdhaha Girihi, the shaken or the agitated, say, Parvata, or Kshubdha Vayuhu, Kshubdha Nadi, a nadi that is flowing vigorously or rigorously, whatever. If you see these prayogas, all these prayogas should be justified upamanat, by somehow relating them to the whatever the paste of barley or wheat that's being agitated. Somehow we have to relate it. For example, when you say ayam balaka siha asti, you are somehow relating the qualities of Sinha on that particular Balaka. You don't mean that the Balaka is actually a lion with a mane and four legs and a roar. You are kind of comparing some qualities in the Balaka with the Sinha. Similarly, when you are using the words Kshubdha Girihi or Kshubdha Nadi, some kind of agitation, some kind of movement, some kind of creation of a mixture, some kind of deviation from the original property, all that you can superimpose it or you can extract it from that paste of barley, saktu, whatever, and put it or compare it with that particular giri or nadi, and based on that upamana, based on that comparison, you can justify these prayogas, is what Kashika is saying. So this is basically somebody is saying a good word, turbulence, for example. So then the turbulence generated in that particular paste of barley or saktu can be said equivalent to the turbulence generated in the river or the turbulence generated on the whatever giri or whatever. So some or the other way you show up the similarity and you justify these prayogas. Yena kena prakarena prayogasya sadhutvam bhavet is the whole bottom line over here. So that's what he is saying, that if you see prayogas, and you will see prayogas like Shubdha Girihi or Shubdha Nadi, these kind of prayogas, ityevam adi upamanat, comparison, upamanat bhavishyati is one way of justifying it. Kaumudi has even better way of justifying it. I'll come to that a little bit later, but somebody is giving an example, Kshubdha Sagara Taranga. So yeah, Kshubdha word is used in multiple places, and that is the reason why both Kashika and commentary require or have spend some time, some lines to justify that prayoga. Kshubdha is very commonly used in the language without having any relation with the mantha, which is that paste or which is the danda, and those prayogas have to be somehow justified with the upamana, is what the sense over here is, as according to Kashika. Kaumudi has a different take on it, which I will explain when we go to Kaumudi. Let's continue with Kashika first. So next word, the second, so this was all about the first word Kshubdha. The second word is Swanta. Swantam iti manaha abhidhanam. It's the synonym for mind. Swanitam anyat. So swana shabde iti dhatu asti. So swanitam is the one that is making a noise or on which the noise is made or whatever. So swanitaham mridangaha. In example, they have used it in the sentence. Manasa swanitam. So the same word manas can also be used in form of a karta, like swantena swanitam. Basically play on the words where he uses the same word in a different meaning, and so basically the word without the idagama and the word with the idagama, you can do a play on the words swantam, swantena swanitam, or kshubdhena kshubhitam, and so on. The next one is dhvantam, same meaning dhvana shabde. So he says dhvantam iti bhavati tamaha vidhanam che dhvanitam anyat dhvanitaha mrudangaha. So there's the normal usage. Dhvanitam tamasa. So the sound of darkness, some poetic statement over here. So you can say dhvantena dhvanitam. Instead of saying tamasa dhvanitam, you can say dhvantena dhvanitam, and so on. I'm giving so many hints for you to create some poetic words for the exercise today. Lagnam iti bhavati saktam chet, to be adhere. Lagitam anyata. So there's about the lagna. He goes to the next word, mlishta. Mlishtam iti bhavati avispashtam chet, not very clear sound, indistinct sound. Mlechitam anyat. So in case of mlishtam, along with the idagama, the itva is also coming as a nipatana, as I said. So that's what he makes it clear. Itvam api ekarasya nipatanad eva. A becoming E is also a nipatana. Viribdham, the next word in the list is viribdham. Viribdham iti swaraha, a specific dhvani visheshaha, swara visheshaha, like udatta, anudatta and all that, some specific type of swara. Or in Sangita, we have sa, re, ga, and so on. A specific type of swara in a specific pitch is called viribdha, virebhitam anyat. Rebhru shabde ityasya nipatanam. As I mentioned, the verb is rebha. Anye tu viribhitam iti anyat iti pathanti. That also I mentioned. Some people say rabha iti dhatu asti, some others say ribha iti dhatu asti. So if the original dhatu differ, then the form, the real form, the actual valid form will also differ. Valid in the sense regular form will differ. So viribdha is the nipatana. From which verb is it generated? Some say it is rebha, some say it is rabha, some say it is ribha. So then the other regular form will differ. It can be virebhita or it can be viribhita. Some people say rabhi it is kashana sautraha dhatuh asti te viribhitam iti pratyudaharanti. So the normal forms will be different based on the different dhatu, but the final form is still viribdha when it comes to lack of idagama, when it comes to nipatana. The next word is phanta. Phantam iti bhavati. This was related to the medicine, a medicine that is prepared with less efforts or not much efforts. So phantam iti bhavati anayasasche. Phanitam, that's the normal form with the idagama. Phanitam anyat. This next particular line actually talks about the process, or actually talks about the what I mentioned. The medicine has been prepared in a simple manner. Let's read it. Yat ashrutam. Ashrutam means the one that is not subjected to intense heat, one that is not cooked. Shruta, shrupa, shrapake iti adadiganasya dhatu asti. Shrapake tasya shrutam iti pratyanta rupam bhavati. The one that is cooked or the one that is manually treated, say you treated in a laboratory or whatever, that reverse of that. Yat ashrutam. So the one that is not extensively treated with chemicals or not extensively processed. Apishtam, not really ground or grinded, not really made into paste. Tadrusham kashayam. How is that medicine? Typically, medicines will require some complex methodologies, but this medicine can be extracted very easily. Yat ashrutam, not subject to complex heating procedures. Apishtam, not subject to complex distortions or grinding. Tadrusham kashayam. Udaka samparka matrat vibhaktam. Take the raw material, put it in the water or some liquid, give a little bit of heat, and it automatically comes out. The required medicine automatically comes out. So udaka samparka matrat vibhakta rasa. The juice comes out. Vibhakta is to be separated. The juice gets separated from those seeds, leaves, flowers, whatever, in a very simple manner. Simply mix it with water, probably shake a little, give a little bit of temperature, heat it a little bit, and it will get extracted. That's what he says over here. Yat ashrutam apishtam cha kashayam udaka samparka matrat vibhakta rasam ishad ushnam. Little heating is required when you mix it with the water. Ishad ushnam. Ishad ityukte kinchit. Little lukewarm water. Somebody saying like the usage of lukewarm water. So with a little bit heated water, that is called phantam. That means that kashayam, oshadhi, is called phantam. Tat alpa prayatna sadhyatvat anayasena lakshate. Self-explanatory. Alpa prayatna sadhyatvad, not much efforts. Anayasena, easily it is obtained. Alpa prayatna sadhyatvad anayasena lakshate. So let's read it once and then go ahead. Yat ashrutam apishtam cha kashayam udaka samparka matrat vibhakta rasam ishadushnam tat phantam tat alpa prayatna sadhyatvad anayasena lakshate. And then the last word is badham. Badham iti bhavati bhrusham chet bahitam anyata, that the normal form. Bahu prayatne ityasya dhatoho nipatanam atishayascha bhrusham iti kathyate. So this is all about the Kashika description. Let's go to Kaumudi. We are almost 1 hour into the class and it's only the first sutram that I am dealing. I would like to finish the whole set anyway today, but this is the only sutram that has a detailed explanation. Other sutras are like 2 to 3 minutes. Nothing is there in the remaining sutras. So it's okay. We'll spend 5 more minutes on this. Just give me 1 minute. Let's go to Kaumudi. Initial part is almost exactly the same. So let me just quickly read it. क्षुब्धादीनि अष्टौ अनिट्कानि निपात्यन्ते समुदायेन मन्थादिषु वाच्येषु द्रव्य संपृक्ताः सक्तवः मन्थः मंथन दण्डः इत्यपि मन्थः क्षुब्धः मन्थः चेत् नेक्स्ट वर्ड स्वान्तं मनः नेक्स्ट वर्ड ध्वान्तं तमः नेक्स्ट वर्ड लग्नं सक्तं nishthanatvam api nipatana. The na is also by the nipatana. Next word, mlishtam avispashtam. Next word, viribdhaha swaraha. Next word, mlecha rebhu. So 2 words here combined together. Mlecha rebhu. Sorry, the previous 2 words is explaining the derivation. Mlecha rebhu rebhu anayoho upadhayaha itvam api nipatyate. In both the cases, mle becomes mli and re becomes re. That's the itvam, that is the nipatana over here. The next word, phantam anayasa sadhyaha kashaya visheshaha. Madhavaha. So the bhashya Rigvedasya bhashyakara or Vedanam bhashyakaraha Madhavacharya, the one who is a commentator of the Vedas, he gives a different meaning for phanta. So the typically accepted meaning is this easily prepared medicine, but what Madhava says is slightly different. Again, difference of opinions, or maybe that is the meaning in which the word phanta is seen used in the Vedas, because he is a Veda Bhashyakara, so he is talking in the context of Vedas. So he says Veda Bhashya, in the Veda Bhashya, what Madhava is saying, Navanita Bhavat Prak Avastha Pannam Dravyam. When milk gets converted to curd and when curd gets converted to buttermilk, after agitating buttermilk, the small particles of Navanita will start floating on the top. The stage before that, so the buttermilk that is, we have just started agitating, but the Navanita has not yet come on the top. That buttermilk, that entity is called phanta, is according to Madhava. So in the Vedas, what Madhavacharya says is that the word phanta is used to indicate what? Navanita bhavat prak avasthapannam. Navanita is the floating butter on the top of the buttermilk. Before that, Navanita bhavat prak avasthapannam dravyam phantam iti Veda bhashye aha. So whatever raw material that is coming on the top, or whatever is the intermediate solution from which that particular Navanita comes up, is the phanta, is what one meaning used in the Vedas. Badham Bhrusham. Somebody is saying this meaning is also given in the in the Apte dictionary. So this could be one of the common meanings also. So Agrima Shabdaha Badham Bhrusham frequent iti artha. So these are all the meanings for these words that are given in this particular sutram. Anyatra. So in all other cases, the normal idagama will happen. Anyatra through Shubhitam, Swanitam, Dhvanitam, Lagitam, Lechitam, Virebhitam, Phanitam, Bahitam. So atra sarvatra idagamena saharupam siddhyati. Now one last argument and we will go to the next sutram. That argument is about the word Shubdha. So remember, we have prayogas like Shubdha Girihi, Shubdha Sagaraha, Shubdha Nadi. Kashikakara gives another meaning, Shubdha Raja, an angry or agitated or disturbed king. Shubdha Raja. Now he says all these prayogas can be actually justified using the Paninian system. You don't have to do upama and forcefully stretching the meaning and so on. It can be justified by staying within the Paninian system of grammar. And now he is explaining that Kshuddhaha Raja iti tu agama shastrasya anityatvat siddham. This is what I will explain, and then we will go to the next sutram. What is he saying is that words like Shubdhaha Girihi, Shubdha Nadi, Shubdhaha Raja, all these words can be justified by a concept called Agama Shastrasya Anityatvam. Shubdhaha Raja iti Agama Shastrasya Anityatvat Siddham Bhavati. Let's understand what is this Agama Shastrasya Anityatvam. In Ashtadhyayi, we have various agamas given by different sutras. So we have this Itta Agama. In say Langlakar, we have Adagama. A comes before the dhatu. In some cases, we also have Adagama. If the dhatu is Ajadi dhatu, we get Adajadi Nam. Adagama comes. Adagama is also seen in the Lot Lakara. So ani lot ad uttamasya picture, sorry, ad uttamasya picture ityanena at agamaha bhavati. You get some more agamas. There is a sut agama, sutkat purvaha, and so on. So various different agamas. Gno, cook, tuk, shari. So cook and tuk are the agamas. There are various different agamas that are given in Ashtadhyayi. Now there is a paribhasha in Paribhashindu Shekhara which says agama shastram anityam, which means that these agamas behave slightly weirdly sometimes. Sometimes when the agamas are expected to come, they just don't come over there. Sometimes they forget coming and they just don't come over there. Now this is all insane and this is nonsense. They are not like human beings who are trying to avoid work or something, but we have to justify some prayogas. So this concept of anityatva has been used to demonstrate this. The concept of anityatva is not new to us. We say many times a paribhasha is anitya, a certain gunadesha or samruddhi adesha is anitya, and so on. What he is saying in addition to that is the agamas are also anitya, which means that once in a while, if you want to justify the prayogas, you are allowed, or the experts will be allowed to derive an existing word form by missing an agama where the agama should really come. You are not allowed to do that. Only the scholars, only those who are deriving existing forms have the right to do that, or they're basically the scholars in the field who are giving model derivations for the words, they are allowed to do that. Basically Bhashyakara is a pramana over here for us. So what he says is that the agamas are sometimes volatile, they just don't come, and that is happening in case of Kshuddha over here. In all the form sentences like Kshuddha Raja, Kshuddha Girihi, Kshuddha Nadi, it should ideally be Kshubhita, 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 but in that prakriya, idagama, like a naughty candidate, just doesn't come up at some point in time because of agama shastrasya anityatvam, and therefore we end up in the forms like Shubdha. So there is this particular paribhasha in the Paribhashindu Shekhara, agama shastram anityam, which tells us that the sutras that give the agamas sometimes misbehave. Once in a while, they will not come up when they are expected to come up. That is called anityatva, agama shastrasya anityatvam iti atra. So vikaranas are not agamas, but vikaranas are also anitya. There is another paribhasha which says gana vikaranam anityam and so on. So there are certain prayogas that have to be justified. For them, certain agamas or certain pratyas, certain applications, certain lopas, vriddhi, guna, even certain paribhashas themselves are all being made anitya. Anitya doesn't mean irregular, or anitya doesn't mean whenever it comes to their mind they will come, and whenever it comes to their mind they will bunk off. Not like that. 99.999% cases they will come. For once or twice to justify some prayogas here and there, they will be omitted, and that's what is being referred as agama shastrasya anityam. सो क्षुब्धः राजा इति आगमशास्त्रस्य अनित्यत्वात् सिद्धं भवति. You don't need to have extended meaning like upamana and so on. You purely stay in the realm of or in the frame of Paninian grammar and say Agama Shastram Anityam. One small remark before going ahead, I don't want to go in the details of this paribhasha, but this paribhasha is written by Nagesha in Paribhashan Deshekara, but it is not justified or it is not accepted or certified by Nagesha. He says that there are some, this is a popular opinion which is used to derive certain forms, but Bhashyakara nowhere in the Bhashya refers to that particular paribhasha Agama Shastram Anityam, so it cannot be justified by the Bhashya. Is also an argument that Nagesha puts in Paribhashan Shekhara, and therefore probably Kashika does not even go on that route and just gives a far-fetched argument of Upamana. So either way you can treat it, each of them has a pros and a cons, or a positive part and negative part. This is what the Kshubdha word, the usage of Kshubdha word in the language can be justified. Agre gachhamaha. So that was probably one full hour of, or whatever, 45 minutes of discussion of one sutram. The next ones will be pretty fast. The second one is Dhrudaha Sthula Balayoho and Prabhu Parivrudaha. Both the sutras extremely simple. So Drudha, very well known word. Drudha word is used to indicate sthula, fat, or balavat, firm, with power, with energy. So sthulaha nochet balavat इत्यस्मिन् अर्थे दृढ इति शब्दः निपात्यते. सूत्रे सर्वं दत्तमेव अस्ति. दृढः स्थूलबलयोः. So the dhatu is drunha, druhi, idit dhatu asti, idito num dhatu iti numagamaha. Drunha plus ta gives drudha. So how do you derive drudha? Everything comes in nipatana. So idagama, lack of idagama is nipatana. Nakara, unwanted nakara is there, get it out, nipatana. Unwanted hakara is there, remove it, nipatana. There is a takara but you want a dhakara, convert takara to dhakara, nipatana. So basically everything is achieved by nipatana. दृढ़ इति निपात्यते स्थूले नो चेत् बलवति इत्यस्मिन् अर्थे. दृढ़ः स्थूलः दृढ़ो बलवान्. किम अत्र निपात्यते? सर्वं निपात्यते. क्त प्रत्ययः, that is the only thing that does not go and get a nipatana. id abhavah, so id abhavah nipatyate. Hakara nakarayoh lopah nipatyate. See, eventually you have drunha plus kta, and somehow you have to balance the equation to create a drudha. So get rid of na, get rid of ha, and so magically convert to dha. That there you are, you get drudha. So everything nipatyate. Drumhe kta pratyay idabhava nipatyate. Hakara nakare lopah nipatyate. Parasya dhatvam nipatyate. Everything nipatyate. There are a few more lines in Kashika, but unrelated to this particular part, so I have omitted them. I would like to finish this in today's class. Unrelated to idagama and so on. He just compares some other dhatus with that particular form and so on. स्थूलबलयोः इति किम्? अन्येषु अर्थेषु तु द्रुहितं, द्रुहितं. So druha is a different dhatu. I could have gotten rid of it. अन्येषु अर्थेषु तु द्रुहितं or द्रुहितं उभयः उभयता भवति. Kaumudi sthule balavati च निपात्यते. द्रुह द्रुहि वृद्धौ. That's what he says. You can pick up any dhatu. You can either pick up druha dhatu or you can pick up druhi dhatu. Any dhatu you can pick up. Eventually you have to do all the magic of, or all the random stuff of removal of things. So if you pick up druha dhatu, maybe nakara you don't have to remove. If you pick drumha dhatu, that is druhi, drumha dhatu, nakara is also what you have to remove. So druha druhi vruddhau. Tasya idabhavaha tasya dhatvam hasya lopaha idito nalopascha. Everything nipatyate. Druhitaha drumhitaha iti tu samanya rupam bhinnamasti. Next sutram is prabhau parivrudhaha. As I mentioned, remaining 4-5 sutras are extremely simple. Prabhau parivrudhaha. Parivrudha iti shabdaha nipatyate. Prabhu, leader, swami, pramukha ityasmin arthe. So Prabhu, swami, pramukha ityasmin arthe. Parivruha iti dhatuhu. Parivruha plus the parivrudha. Again, everything that you want to achieve is achieved by nipatana. Na numagama, na goes away, ha goes away, ta becomes dha, same as the previous one. So parivrudha iti nipatyate. Prabhuhu chetad bhavati. Parivrudaha kutumbi, the leader of the family, or swami, pramukha, whatever. Purveda tulyam etat. The derivation is what he is saying is just like the previous one, sequential sutras. So Purveda tulyam etat vrudhatoho nipatanam. In other meanings, you still get an idagama vrumhitam or vruhitam iti rupam siddhyati. So drudha is derived from druha or drunha. Parivrudha is derived from vruha or vrunha. Two dhatus, either of them can be used to do the derivation. The next sutram in the sequence, so here we are done with this Kshubdha Swanta, we are done with Drudha Sthulabalayoho, we are done with Prabho Parivrudhaha. The next sutram in the sequence, णेः Adhyayane Vruttam. णेः णिच् प्रत्ययान्त धातोः विषयत्र निर्देशः अस्ति. There is a Vruta dhatu which is the 10th gana. Vruta vartate in the first gana is different. Vruta in the 10th gana is used to in the sense of to speak, to study, to talk, to explain. So Vruta bhashayam iti churadiganasya dhatuhu. You add a nich on the top because it is churadigana dhatu, and then you add a kta on the top because now you want to add a nishtha pratyaya. Idagama and so on might come, but all that eventually Vrutta is the final form which is given to you. So Vruta plus Nica plus Ta is equal to Vrutta. Idagamasya lopaha Nich pratyasya lopaha iti sarvam nipatyate. So anything that is unwanted, get rid of it by nipatyate. So Vruta plus Nica plus Kta, idagama, it should have come, but it doesn't come thanks to nipatana. Nich should remain, but it goes away thanks to nipatana. Vruta plus Ta becomes Vrutta. In which meaning? Adhyayanam, to study. So study ityasmin arthe, adhyayanam ityasmin arthe, णिच् प्रत्यान्त धातुः अस्ति वृत, तस्य वृत्तम इति रूपम सिद्ध्यति. कथम वाक्ये प्रयोगः? देवदत्तेन गुणः वृत्तः. Guna is a technical term over here. Technical is not a Vyakara technical term. Guna is a specific term over here which is used to indicate a certain method of recitation of Vedas. So for example, we have different pathas. We have say Jata Patha, Ghana Patha, Shikha Patha and so on. A specific sequence of recitation of these pathas. Say Prathamam Pada Patha, Tadanantaram Krama Patha, Tadanantaram Samhita Patha. This particular sequence, the study in this particular sequence is called Guna. So Devadattena Gunaha Vrittaha means Devadatta has studied the Vedas in the sequence of the Pada Patha, Krama Patha and then Samhita Patha. So in this sequence, Devadattam has studied the Vedas. Vedanam Parayanasya Patha Paddhatihi Tena Jnata iti Ashayah. So Nyantasya Vruttehe Nisthayam Adhyayanarthe Vruttam iti it ityasya abhavaha णिच् ityasya luk ubhayo dvopi nipatyate. Vrittaha gunaha devadattena. So Devadatta has mastered, skilled, expertised a certain method of reciting Vedas or studying Vedas. Vrittam parayanam devadattena. The same parayana has been studied. Adhyayane kim vartitam anyat. So if you have Vrutta plus Nica plus Ida plus Ta, the normal form will be Vartita, which can be used in different senses, like Vartitarajjuhu, whatever meaning it means. Vartitarajjuhu is the sense it's used. So Anyantad Vrittehe tasya it abhavaha ani lukcha adhiyamane arthe Vrittam chandaha chatrena. So the student has studied, mastered the Chanda Shastra. Sampaditam adhitam iti yavata anyatra tu vartita rajjuhu. A rope is making a sound, so vartita rajjuhu iti atra artha. Only two more sutras, I think, and then we will stop. The next one is va. Now both the next are optional. So we have va, danta, shanta, purna, dasta, spashta, channa, jnaptaha. So vikalpaha asti. Simple. So basically what he says is that this is again in the Nich Pratyasya context. There are these dhatus, Damu Upashame, Shama Upashame, Puri Apyayane, Dasu Pakshaye, Spasha Badhana Sparshanayoho, Chada Urjane, Jnapamarana Toshana Nishamaneshu. For all these dhatus, when you do a Nicha Pratyaya, like the Vrutta dhatu earlier, you did a Nicha Pratyaya and then you were trying to add a Kta Pratyaya. Similarly, Here, when you do a nicha pratyaya and you add a ta pratyaya, the idagama optionally doesn't come up. Now, why does he have to say optionally over here? Because the meaning is not provided. Till the previous sutram, explicit meaning was provided, which means that in certain meaning, the idagama will not come. In all other meanings, the idagama will come. So it was very simple. क्षुब्ध इति वदामश्चेत् तत्र मन्थ इति अस्ति चेत् इडागमः न भवति, अन्ये अर्थाः सन्ति चेत् इडागमः भवति, परन्तु अत्र किम् अस्ति, अत्र अर्थः न दत्तः अस्ति. So in all possible arthas, he would like to justify a form without idagama and a form with idagama. So it is essentially giving an idagama vikalpa without explicitly saying it is idagama vikalpa. So atrapi idagama vikalpah dattah asti. Danta, Shanta, Purna. So well-known words, Shanta, Purna, Spashta, Channa. So all these words where the idagama is not coming up have been given as nipatana. So Dama, Shama, Puri, Dasa, Spasha, Ityetesham Manyantanam Dhatunam. So normal Shama will still become Shanta. Normal Dasa will become Dasta, or normal Chada will become Channa. But that's not what we are talking about. Manyantanam Anitvam Nipatyate. Danta, Damita. Both the forms they have given, Shanta, Shamita, Purna, Purita, Dasta, Dasita, and so on, various different forms they have given. It pratishedhaha dhni luk chadbhatyate. The Dnyapa verb that is written over here, Dnyapa over here, we actually saw that in one of the sutras yesterday, here, Sanivantardha, and so on. So there is a Dnyapa over here. So this Dnyapa here निष्ठायाम सन प्रत्यय विषय विकल्पः अस्ति इडागमस्य, अतः निष्ठायाम नित्यम इडागम निषेधः अत्र ज्ञप धातोः विषये भवति, तत्र णिच् प्रत्ययः अग्रे अस्ति चेत् तत्र, so it's 10th ganas only, the gana dhatu only, so णिच् pratyaya will anyway be there over there. So that particular compulsory idagama nishedha gets optionally blocked by nipatana over here. So jnapta iti api rupam siddhyati, tadanantaram jnapita iti api rupam siddhyati. So jnapta is obtained without idagama and without णिच्. Jnapita, as we saw in the yesterday's class, can be obtained with णिच् and with idagama or without idagama. Either way, jnapitam can be formed. Ete णिचि nishtantava nipatyante pakshe damita, shamita, purita, and so on. So again, these are very specific nipatanas used in particular contexts. The last sutram in this particular set number 5. Where did it go? Last sutram in set number 5 is apachitascha. Not to be pronounced as apachitascha. This should be pronounced as apachitascha. Apa iti upasargaha, chita iti tatra krudantam. Apachitascha. So apa plus chaya iti, chaya puja nishamaniyoho, to pray or to listen carefully, to study, to to learn from somebody. All these meanings are there for chaya. So asmat dhatoho vihitasya nishtha pratyasya vikalpena idagamah bhavati. Essentially, for this apa plus chaya, somehow apachita word has been justified. So vikalpena idagama nishedha bhavati. Chaya ityasya chi iti parivartanam api bhavati. So apa plus chaya plus kta becomes apa plus chi plus ta. Chaya becomes chi. No reason, nipatanam. All discussion in today's class is nipatanam. So chaya becomes chi, apachita. So apachita iti vikalpena nipatyate. Apapurvasya chaya dhatoho nisthayam anitvam. So anit idagamasya vikalp nishedhatra nipatyate. Normal form would be apachayita. The idagama will come over there. Apachayita. But right now it is apachita. For chaya, number 1, the idagama is being blocked, and number 2, mysteriously chaya becomes chi, which is just another nipatana that is being added over here. So chi adesha nipatyate, apachita iti va nipatyate, apapurvasya chayatehe nisthayam anitvam chi bhavasya nipatyate, apachitaha anena guruhu, apachayitaha anena guruhu. So anena ityukte chhatrena guruhu अपचितः पूजितः नो चेत् तस्य समीपे गत्वा गुरोः वचनं सम्यक् रूपेण श्रुतम् उभयथा अर्थ सम्प्राप्तिः भवति. सो अपचितः अनेन गुरुः, अपचायितः अनेन गुरुः. चायतेः निपातः अयं वा, अपचितः अपचायितः. सो पच इति भिन्नः धातुः, तस्य पक्व इति भिन्नं रूपं भवति. Not to be confused over here. Pacha becomes pakwa, that different. Pacha doesn't become pachita. This is apa, and chita is in the context of pujan shamana of the chaya dhatu. Somebody is asking what is chi bhava. Chi bhava is just the nipatana, another name of nipatana. So apapurvasya chayatehe nisthayam anitvam. So idagama, absence of idagama is the nipatana. And look at this prakriya. Chaya has mysteriously become chi over here without any reason. That's called chi bhava, or that's called chi nipatana. Eventually the final form is apachita. So I think that completes this particular set number 5, idagama vishishtham nipatanam. We had 5 or 6 sutras. Kshubbha swanta was 1, drudha sthula balayoho prabho paribrudha, neradhyene vrittam vadanta shanta, and finally apachitascha. The last set of sutras, there are only 4 sutras over there. Idagama vishishtam vaidika nipatanam. The nipatanas explicitly shown in the Vedas. I'll run over them in like 30 seconds. I don't want to go in the details because as you can see, they are specific to the Vaidika Sanskritam, not even in the Kridanta Prakaranam of Siddhanta Kaumudi. The Kridanta Prakaranam of Siddhanta Kaumudi ends at 3386. We are dealing with 35879, 3580 and all that. So these sutras, the first 3 sutras are about a dhatu called Vru dhatu. So there is a very specific dhatu, Vru. This dhatu, Vru kautilya samvarnecha, ha plus va plus r, iti dhatu asti. This particular dhatu has some weird forms seen in the Vedas and they have been justified by giving certain sutras. So vara dhatoho nishtayam ru iti adeshah bhavati. So ru varesh chandasi, vara becomes ru, va goes away. Or aparivruta is another form that comes as a nipatana. Or varita, another form comes as a nipatana. So various forms are given in the Vedas, occur in the Vedas, are given as nipatanas. You don't have to worry about this slide. Those of you who are interested in learning into the Vaidika Sanskritam part, they can refer to this slide. But otherwise, I've just added it for sake of completion. We have been omitting the Vaidika sutras in general from the course. I don't want to go in the details over here. And given that we have studied so many nipatanas in today's class, it's going to be an overdose. The final sutram, again, list of various nipatanas occurring in Vedas. Grasita, Ksabhita, Stabhita, Uttabhita, Chatta, Vikasta. So these are all Kta Pratyanta. Various other Truch Pratyanta forms are also there. Tin Pratyanta forms are also there. Various different Pratyanta forms occurring in the Vedas have been listed in this last sutram. So 31, 32, 33, 34, all these sutras are in sequence. They are talking about certain derivations or forms purely occurring in the Vedas. You don't nearly need to worry about them for our course. So that's it. Anena prakarena तत्र निष्ठा प्रत्ययानां षष्ठः सोपानः प्रक्रियायाः षष्ठः सोपानः इडागमः अस्य अध्ययनं समाप्तं. We have studied, we took 3 sets of classes. Set number 1 and 2 are, somebody is asking, these 6 sets were arranged in the Utsarga Apavada format. That is correct. So just go back to this particular ordering. So the first and the second set over here, the first and the second set. So remember, even before we started with the first set, we talked about the basic sutras, which we also came across in one of the sets. But we discussed with the basic sutras, which should take care of 95% of 90% of the cases. The remaining is only like 5 or 10% of the cases, even less than that. There, the first and the second set was idagama is being forced, and the third and the fourth are where the idagama is being blocked. So these are the 4 more important steps. The 5th and 6th are just the nipatanas. I didn't even add them in this particular chart. 5th and 6th are just the nipatanas. Somebody is asking, is sopanaha correct or sopanam correct? I should probably look it up. I have been always using it in the exchangeable format. I use sopanaha. I also use sopanam, pullinga, napumsakalinga. Possibly it exists in both the lingas. Anyway, let's go to the exercise. But before we go to the exercise, there is some quick announcement that I want to make, and then we will go to the exercise. First thing, tomorrow there is exercise discussion session. So regular timing, we have homework discussion session, class number 73, 74, 75, 76. All of the volunteers have prepared their homework, have given them the final homework sheet. They will be discussing that. So that is for tomorrow. There is another announcement. Next week, instead of Thursday and Friday morning, I will conduct the sessions on Friday and Saturday morning. So next week, anyway, there is no homework discussion session. So Saturday was anyway off. Thursday, I have some other commitments. I will not be able to conduct the class. So I will, instead of Thursday and Friday, I'll replace the Thursday class by Saturday class. So we will have Friday and Saturday. So next, only for the next week. So only for the next week, the regular sessions will be conducted on Friday and Saturday morning. For folks who are in the US over here, it is Thursday and Friday evening instead of Wednesday and Thursday evening. So Friday and Saturday morning, Indian Standard Time. There are no sessions on Thursday morning, and the timings are unchanged, 6:30 a.m. to 8 a.m. specifically for the next week. So that's it. Let's quickly go to the exercises and we will stop. Nishtha pratyaho prakriyayam idagam nipatanam. Short exercise today. Nirdishtayoho shabdayoho madhye vidyamanam arthabhedam vakya prayogena shakyam chet padyatmakena vakya prayogena pradarshayata. So kshubdham versus kshobhitam, lagnam versus lagitam, badham versus bahitam. I've explained all this today. The difference, drudha versus druhita, parivrudha versus parivrumhita. Let your creative juices flow and try to come up with poetic statements. So one line, two lines to come up to show the difference in the meanings of these two particular words. Yesterday I had a question, and yesterday's homework, I think Vijayji submitted it today. For yesterday's homework also, this Dhrushta versus Dharshita, I asked them, the question was Vakye Prayogam Kuruta. The answer sheet that he has submitted, he has created his own padyas, kavyas, poems for all these 5 very beautifully constructed shlokas that will show the difference, or use the word Dhrushta versus Dharshita in one shloka, Shasta versus Shasita in another shloka, Kashta versus Kashita in one more shloka, and so on. So very beautifully constructed shlokas. We will discuss them at the appropriate time in the homework discussion session. So creating poetic statements in Sanskrit is actually easier than creating poems in other languages. In other languages, the beauty of the poem depends on the rhythms or the rhyming words at the end. In Sanskrit, you don't have to worry that. All that you have to worry is the concept of chandas. And at the beginning level, you don't have to worry about the concept of chandas. Just make sure that there are 8 letters in each pada, and then you will have a working poem in the Anushtup chanda. So just make sure there are 8, 8, 8, 8, like Dharmakshetre, Kurukshetre, Samaveta, Yuyutsavaha, Mamaka, Pandavashaiva, Kimakurvata, Sanjay. 8, 8, 8, 8, and that's all that you have to make sure. Don't have to worry about Laghu, Guru, anything. Just make 8, 8, 8, 8, and that will be a small kavya generated. So anybody who signs up for this particular session today, please make sure that, or please try Shakyam Chet. I mean, I'm not forcing that. Shakyam Chet Padyatmakena Vakya Prayogena Atra Uttaram Likhata. I mean, unless this particular restriction is added, your creative juices, or everybody of us, including me, our creative juices won't start flowing. So let's think, let's spend some time, and we should be able to come with some answers over here. Second question, Adho Dattanam Shabdanam Rupa Siddhim Prakriyam Vilikhya Pradarshayata. So these are all again the Nipatana, the Idagam and Idabhava is coming as a Nipatana, Mlecha plus the Mlishta. So then various things will be coming as a Nipatana. A will become E as a Nipatana, but some other things like Shakara and Takara, you will still have a Prakriya to derive it. So there are some things that can be derived through the Prakriya. There are some things that will come as a Nipatana. Write down the final Prakriya. Wherever you can use the sutras, use the sutras. Wherever you cannot use the sutras, replace it by nipatana. So that's the second exercise for today. So this completes the 6th sheet of idagama. Starting next week, we will start with the 7th sheet of Angakarya. We required 3 classes for idagama, 1 last week and 2 this week. For Angakarya, we will require at least 4 classes. 4 or 5, but I'll try to compress everything in 4 if possible. So we will require 4 classes for Angakarya. So next week, both classes, and the week after that, both classes, we should be able to finish in the step 7. So this will show you how big is the scope of the Nishtha Pratyayas or the Prakriyas, and mastering the Prakriya for Nishtha Pratyaya is extremely important for us to be able to understand the nuances of grammar. समापयामः, पुनरेकवारं स्मारयामि, श्वः अभ्यासचर्चावर्गः भविष्यति, सर्वे कृपया अवश्यम् आगच्छन्तु। अष्टाध्यायी जगन्माता यस्य चित्तात् समुत्थिता, वेदानामुपकाराय तस्मै पाणिनये नमः। शब्दब्रह्म समाराध्य कृतवान्यो विलक्षणं, सर्वाश्चर्यमिदं शास्त्रं तस्मै पाणिनये नमः। येन धौता गिरः पुंसां विमलैः शब्दवारिभिः, तमश्चाज्ञानजं भिन्नं तस्मै पाणिनये नमः। धन्यवादः।